BTS once again surprised me with its eerie atmosphere by film-out music video. Not only there are some interesting repetitions in the band's new music video, but there is also an interesting concept about brain function. BTS is about to enter a new era with hidden conscience, and the music video for Film Out is the best opportunity to do so. But what concept will we enter this time? The frames that shape the events of this music video were simulated into Jin's mental space, just like fake love music video. The brain incorporates a portal-like dimension, in which memories are stored or deleted. When the conscious and unconscious part of the brain gets out of physical control or simply suffers from a psychological crisis, a person develops a state similar to identity multiplicity. Memory is one of the most important psychological processes. Memory includes reminders and forgetfulness. Although the two are opposed to each other, they play an important role in people's lives. Because the brain, with its simple deceptions, reminds us of good memories, and on the other hand, by forgetting, it helps the brain to find peace. In simpler language, human system and structure, both physical and mental, make every effort to survive, even in moments when everything seems to have come to an end. For example, when we're in a state of fear, our hands begin to cool because the structure of the body, thinking that a person is in a critical situation that may be in danger of death, so it first sends more blood to vital organs, such as the heart and lungs. Or in another example, we can refer to the normal function of endorphins in the body. Endorphins are substances which their main effect is to relieve pain. Endorphins are produced during exercise, laughter, crying and pain. Therefore, in sad moments, it is recommended not to stop tears, because crying causes the release of endorphins, which ultimately causes calm and pleasant state in humans. Endorphins also relieve pain by stopping the transmission of pain messages to the brain. Therefore, all the parts of the body strive to survive until the last moment. However, as I said, memory is a psychological process that has a very complex organization. Through various analyses, scientists have come to the inevitable truth: memory is made up of 3 different organizations. One that is fully connected to the conscious and we call it a reminder. The second is related to the unconscious and is called forgetfulness. The third is a very complex situation that cannot be named exactly. It may happen that sometimes you remember some memories for no reason, that may not have any important meaning. For example, it can be a piece of a children's song, or the dialogues of a TV commercial. These events all belong to the third process of memory. At first glance, this process is very simple, but things get complicated when this process is instructed by the conscious brain to act unconsciously. For example, in critical moments, it can quickly create multiple characters. One may be a blind human being, but the second created character is sighted. Or one can completely eradicate cancer and similar diseases. Or, for example, suppose you dream that you are talking to someone about a subject. Your words come from your brain and thoughts, but the other person who talks to you in a dream, from which brain does his words take orders? Although there is still no physical or logical explanation for this behavior of the brain, psychology and metapsychology from the past to the present have succeeded in penetrating this part of the brain to some extent. However, this is still one of the most inaccessible human thoughts and there is no explanation for it. And now what we see in this first and most important scene of the music video is the same part of the brain that we talked about, fused with the conscious and the unconscious, a place where there are memories that do not exist at all. One of the most important reasons for mental confusion is that the nature of memory and imagination are very close, because both are conceivable only in the mind and man is aware of the continuation of the story of both. But whenever the continuation of the story is forgotten because of unconscious actions, the person will not be able to discern the truth from the imagination no more. What we have seen since the beginning of BTS may be just Jin's manipulated memories. Or according to previous analyses, they do not exist at all. As in Demian book, there is doubt about the existence of Demian's character. At first, all the members are in the room, but do not see each other. We have Jimin and Jungkook in this room at the same time, but not as a separate individual, but as a single element. Members are not alike, they are different. Yet no one can determine where these paths and stories take us. Although the organs produce different thoughts, the neurogram nerves in the brain all belong only to Jin. They cannot understand Jin, just as a creature cannot ask its creator about existence of himself. This place is inseparable from Jin's mind. The multiplicities that come to mind, because of the harms beyond society, all stem from a place where the world is increasingly changing faster and more complexly than before, so the link between place and identity seems to be becoming more prominent. All members come to realize that they are in different hypothetical situations. They were just created with different mental settings to endure and experience the tragic events of someone else's life. When the experience of pain is artificial, it brings far more painful experiences. For example, imagine that the memories you have in your mind, from birth until now, they exist only because one day you realize completely by chance that these memories are completely fake, and you were born not just for several years, but only moments. You were not born in your own body, but an artificial body, whose reason for existence is the experience of painful moments that do not even belong to you. Jungkook experienced the same situation in the teaser of the Wings album. Although it is hard to believe, but in the Black Swan, he finally sees the truth. This music video is fascinating and bizarre, with metaphysical surreal scenes of the nature of art and truth, romantic atmosphere, and psychological acting of the members. The process is implemented in such a way that the scenes are constantly in conflict and question each other. The atmosphere is exaggeratedly unnatural, and the compositions are wonderfully symbolic. For example, no matter how beautiful and vivid the sky behind the window looks, it is completely artificial. At first glance, the sky may be a place for peace of and the mind, but the concept behind it conveys too much fear and confusion. According to the defense mechanism, in critical situations, the mind, in order to hide the sorrow from the soul, empties it and puts it into a vacuum. Therefore, in this scene, the sky is in the symbol of nothingness, although in this scene we are in the time of day, and the curtains are open, but the room is covered with darkness. If we pay attention to the structure inside the room, the fabrics that are drawn on the furniture are still a symbol of emptiness and the absence of any presence of life there. It is a kind of way to forget. When we use the word tragedy to describe a BTS, we should expect a tragedy that, like Aristotle, is theorized in its poetry. For Aristotle, a catastrophe must focus on a protagonist, which Aristotle calls a tragic defect. A tragic defect is a negative trait that causes the protagonist to take a deadly path in pursuit of others' goal that does not belong to him. It is for the ideals and aspirations of others because it is what makes him hero. Along the way, the hero makes judgments that plunge his world into chaos. As a result, it causes isolation, suffering and the ultimate downfall of the main character. In BTS, Jin, hero of tragedy, realizes his mistakes, but then it's too late. We have seen many times that BTS has been influenced by the norms of Greek tragedy, but formally there is no such connection between the two tragedies. The BTS tragedy, as can be seen from this scene, contains many elements that are usually symbolic. These elements make the BTS catastrophes more psychologically complex and emotionally diverse than traditional Greek tragedies. Also, the play and the role of the members give a new twist to the tragic themes. In the storyline of this group, fate often plays an important role in determining the performance of the main character or Jin, which can be considered related to the butterfly effect. And now this element, by emphasizing the inner turmoil of the story character, complicates the theme of destiny more than joining with alien forces in the fictional world. The elements in these frames are used in a more closed form, because in terms of directing, it shows Jin's mind is closed to the outside world. The location of the music video is very similar to the one where Jin was in Fake Love music video. Although this time the room is not empty of objects, but still the feeling of emptiness on the side where Jin is standing is strongly induced. There are two forms of a room that are symmetrical to each other, one with the presence of members in general, and the other in the form of members individually. And gradually this character turns completely to be Jin. The room that illuminated by light can be called the unreal dimension, because the events behind the frame are not real and Jin gives them life and moves them. For this reason, in the lyrics of the song, the arrangement of memories is mentioned many times. As I mentioned a couple years ago, all of these may be pieces of recurring memories that are constantly performed in different ways by different characters. The darker side of the room, and the other side of the frame, is the real dimension of Jin's mind, in which only he can be present, and the unreal components fade. In general, the building of the music video is inspired by the book, Into the Magic Shop. The beliefs that the main character had about the functioning of the mind, and the power that a brain is summed up in 2 dimensions. In fact, the frame-like space also refers to the BTS logo, which indicates a gate that may sometimes appear to be closing, and sometimes appear to be opening. The main difference is that, if we look from the same angle, that Jin is staring across the frame, it is completely dark outside the window, because Jin's focus is only on the room, where the other characters are, so it is enough for them to be clear. The world outside the window is dark because the world outside the window has not yet been imagined by Jin. As Jin initially goes from darkness to light, because he is imagining images, in the second room are all 7 members, even Jin himself is having fun with the members. But until the end, only his back is visible to us. Perhaps at first we want to consider this as a factor of these scenes being filmed at the same time, so it was not possible to have 2 Jins. However, given the facilities of directing and CGI and the costs that these music videos have been incurred, there is no such possibility at all. The reason why Jin turns his back on his mental image is that he has long forgotten his role, and it is hard for him to imagine that who he is and what his identity is. For example, imagine that you are the author of a book, in which the main character has only a 1 dialogue page, and the rest of the pages belong to the other characters. Does the author not forget what the role of the main character is? There is a sad truth: Jin turns his back to himself, even in his true dimension, as if he no longer wants to exist. He does not consider himself to belong to that world, even if he does not exist. Sometimes people create an ideal character in their mind, and make the world so beautiful for the character, that there remains no room for themselves. And did you notice how the characters start moving only when he turns back, like the planned puppets of a Bunraku show? Suddenly an hourglass appears in Jin's hand. The hourglass is one of the most allegorical symbols, such as birth and death, the repetition of countless worlds, time and the end of time. Hourglasses can be on different schedules, for example, either 20 minutes or 1 hour. Note that the structure of the hourglass is symmetrical, as is the structure of the music video location. When all the sand is empty, you can simply start over by turning the hourglass, but this is a new time and the lost time will not be restored. So the structure of these 2 symmetrical rooms is just like an hourglass. When life and time are on the other side, another room is filled with darkness and terrible silence. When Jin picks up the clock, the sand starts to fall. We do not know how much time the hourglass shows, but according to the allegory, it can be concluded that it is Jin that actually determines the time. He can remove part of time, because we are in his world. Seeing this scene, only Jungkook leaves his role. The direction of this part is admirable because Jungkook breaks the 4th wall in the music video, but there is still another 4th wall that all the members are indifferent to, and that is us the viewers. Jungkook can see beyond the frame, although the rest of the members may not want to stare at it, because they are unable to cross it. When Jin picks up the hourglass, and the falling sand begins, only Jungkook strangely realizes that the end is very near, and that the current calm is the calm before the storm. Jungkook looks like he's just remembering taking part in a show, a feeling similar to the time we've all probably experienced, The times when we think about the beginning and the end of everything, yet we don't get answers. This scene is adapted from a sequence from Run's music video in which, among the play and fun, Jin suddenly realizes that V is drowning. One of the scenes I really liked was this part. The hourglass on the other side of the frame has been empty for a long time, however Jungkook does not turn the hourglass, because he is hesitant and unable to do so. When their time is up, the characters will not be able to repeat it or even review the memories because there is no memory to think about, so they create visualizations that seem to be memories. Time moves only in Jin's frame. In the continuation of the previous sequence, we encounter this frame. We know that Sugar is sitting on one side and J-Hope on the other. But when the camera turns and we look at the other side from their angle, we realize that the two do not see each other. They sit alone on this platform, which can be easily bypassed. A frame that is not even a mirror, but an illusion of existence. The desert-like atmosphere evokes a feeling of loneliness and emptiness. The members disappear before Jin's eyes, even though he no longer has an hourglass in his hands. As if he no longer has control over the timing circuit. He stares only at the empty frame that was once full of imagination. He now knows what is in front of him. With a brief look at the past, the concept behind these scenes becomes clearer. Every time Jin saw the frame in front of him, it was always nothing but a picture of himself. And every time he tried to touch the image, either his face would break, or the mirror would become completely different in nature. In this scene, when he turns away from the mirror, only one image is in sync with him, and the other 6 images, which are symbols of each member, don't follow his movements. That's why in the Black Swan music video, Jin turns away from himself. But this time everything is different, because this moment nothing visible is there to stop him from reaching the other side. No windows nor mirrors. In Fake Love music video, Jin closes the curtain on Jungkook and leaves him in the dark. Jungkook tried to save the rest of the members, as well as Jin, before time ran out. Before the house of Jin's thoughts collapsed. Jin desperately reaches out to Jungkook, even though there are no physical barriers between them. But time is running out, and this time Jungkook no longer makes any effort. He disappears, and leaves Jin. In Fake Love music video, Jungkook tried to hold the sands of time in his hands, until a path opened to Jin's heart for Jungkook, which led to the room where they are now. Just as Edgar Allan Poe likens time to grains of sand in a dream within a dream poem, no matter how hard he tries to hold them in his fist, the grains of sand slip through his fingers and are lost. The sand particles bounce back and gravity reverses. Although this seems to be a symbol of the return of time, it refers to the reversal of the symmetry of the worlds. In Fake Love music video, the flower disappeared inside the sandbox. In On music video, it was the bird that disappeared. No matter how much the sound flies or falls, they are still inside the glass, which is no different from each other. They are never free until the glass is broken. When Jin notices the hourglass, everyone disappears and Jin's mental world collapses. Just like Fake Love music video, but this time instead of flower in the glass, Jin has nothing to protect it from this catastrophic collapse, even himself. This time Jin is completely fragile and helpless, terrified. Jin decides to run away in order not to face the truth. In the Wings teaser, when Jin encountered his own tangible reflection, he fled his mental room and left the rest of the members in the form of snippets of photos that appeared shortly after he left. But there is one major difference between the two scenes. In Wings, when Jin opened the door, there was a corridor which he got out of his mind, but in this music video, when Jin opens the door, one of the most shocking scenes in the BTS storyline takes place. Contrary to expectations, Jin finds himself in a terrible abyss. This time there is nothing behind the door except countless more doors that lead to the view of the other members, and there is no way to escape but to fall. The main reason for this difference is, there is no longer any curtains to close on truths, but the truth descends on his life with more and more cruelty, like a whip. Time is wasted and the house of abyss is completely torn apart, and Jin can no longer imagine anything but the illusion of everything in his being. An existence that does not want to be no more, a body that often goes to the brink of killing itself and others, but because it does not know the border of reality and fantasy, it dies many times without really dying. Door is very important in BTS's philosophy, and this importance culminates in this music video. Behind all the closed doors, there is a part of Jin's imagination, and when Jin doesn't like the end of an imagination, he closes the door on them, and creates another world. So, when Jimin confronted himself, Suga closed his eyes, and Jimin was taken out of the room. Whenever one grasps to his own reflection, he actually wants to know what the face of the shadow looks like. Where is the world behind the mirror? I feel we are getting closer to Cotard theory. In this scene, it becomes even clearer that Jin is under the illusion that there is nothing, but only his own mental range. It is really impossible to ignore Jin's awesome acting skills, how different emotions are reflected in his face. Just after Jin opens the door, J-Hope and Suga are able to see each other, and are actually in each other's mirrors. This means that the love and care they had for each other was as if Narcissus fell in love with his reflection in the water, because the reflection was never real. The two are like the sands of an hourglass, constantly moving between two coordinated poles and constantly turning upside down to start over. But how does time flow if these sands do not move and no one resumes time? Do J-Hope and Suga touch each other behind this wooden frame, or do they just feel the glass that will never let them hold their hand? This scene matches the final scene of Fake Love. At the end of Fake Love, when Jungkook arrived in the room, Jin was no longer there, but wore a robe and a mask. Members were doomed to hide their identities, because they could not have an identity other than what they now have. But in this scene, we see how everything has changed. Being ahead of others means that he is the main identity, and he owns some pieces from each member in his existence that is undeniable. Although Jin has no way to go, he returns, but this time he does not reach out to touch something that doesn't exist at all. The plot twist of the music video takes place in this scene. Just like the music video for Blood, Sweat and Tears, where in the end only V stayed with Jin, and became one with him through a kiss, this time again a character completely opposite to Jin shows him life. As Demian introduced the universe to Sinclair, and then left him. This time, V is here and confronts Jin, unlike the time when he covered his eyes. In fact, the final scenes of blood, sweat and tears and film out complement each other and refer to the final page of Demian book. Emile Sinclair is wounded in battle, and when he regains consciousness, he sees Max Demian by his side. Little Sinclair, listen, I will have to go away. Perhaps you'll need me again sometime, against Chroma or something. If you call me, I won't come crudely. You'll have to listen within yourself, then you will notice that I am within you. Do you understand? I closed my eyes in obedience. I felt a light kiss on my lips where there was always a little fresh blood which never would go away. And then I fell asleep. Next morning when I was finally wide awake, I turned quickly to the mattress next to mine. On it lay a stranger I'd never seen before. Dressing the wound hurt. Everything that has happened to me since has hurt. But sometimes when I find the key, and climb deep into myself, where the images of fate lie slumber in the dark mirror, I need only bend over the dark mirror to behold my own image, now completely resembling him. The one who replaces Jin after disappearing is V. But why among all the members is it V who becomes the central character? Because he was the initiator of the crisis of his identity, a character born of chaos, so that the story can have a catharsis. Aristotle considers catharsis as one of the results of enjoying the work of art and mainly presents it in tragedy. The poet of tragedy describes an event in the life of an individual, or group of society, who have made a mistake, and who have paid a heavy price for the mistake that befell them. Aristotle refers to catharsis as the effect that tragic events have on the hero. The audience of the tragedy, on the one hand, is afraid of getting caught in the same situation as the hero of the tragedy, and on the other hand, feels sympathy for him. With tragedy, esoteric passion and ecstasy prevail over reason and morality. However, if we look closely at the difference between V and the person he dreamed to be, we see a different aspect of him that may not be as evil as it seemed in previous music videos. He was the only victim of the paths created for him, who really drown, and whose hands were stained with blood. V is the only character who is truly alone. He was the first identity that had to face tragedy. And now he is completely in a collapsed room that is neither real nor imaginary. If you look at Jin while he was running towards the door, you will notice that the door, which is closed on the other side of the frame, all the time and was annoyingly in the center of the audience's attention, is open only at this moment, and is completely dark inside. This is where V comes from. Behind of Jin was nothing but light and a valley to fall into. But behind V world there is nothing but nothing. As in the beginning of the music video, V drowned in darkness. Like the sentence I quoted earlier, everything that is empty seeks to fill its emptiness with everything, even if it is all fake.